Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. With its 3.36-mile track and 19 corners, this Miami Grand Prix should create great opportunities for these Formula 2 drivers to overtake and show what they can do. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Fernando Alonso lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hadjar, Sainz, Aiden Jackson, Bortoleto, Antonelli, Albon, Russell, and Callie Mayer, Behrman, Leclerc, Lance Stroll, and Colapinto, Doohan, Maloney, Pierre Gasly, and Esteban Ocon, Hulkenberg, Aaron, Lawson, and Pepe Marti completes the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me is Anthony Davidson. So a sprint race today, and that means lights to flag, no stops. And how is that going to affect the driver behind the wheel?
Absolutely. So for today, there's no pit stop, or shouldn't be a pit stop anyway, if things go right, and you can forget about strategy. You're just driving today as fast as you can, make those overtakes if you need to, and that's what a sprint weekend's all about.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. As all the cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
All right, here we are for the Miami Sprint. Driving yet again is Aiden Jackson in the Konnersport car, in a decent position on the third row next to the Ferrari, and I believe ahead of the Aston Martin. No, that's going to be the Mercedes of I believe, Callie Mayer. As we see the rest of the cars pull up to the grid. Hi, red lights are on. Alonso Norris on the front row. And we are off to a pretty decent start. See what kind of position changes happen here on the first corner. Almost 3 wide as Norris takes the outside lane. 2x2 going through turn 1. That's going to be the Ferrari of Bortoleto, Antonelli, and Jackson going 3 wide momentarily through turn 1. As we see Jackson sitting P5, Antonelli fighting Bortoleto behind. Russell sitting back in P9. That's going to be Callie Mayer back in P11. So that was my mistake. That was Jackson ahead of Antonelli. And surprisingly, Hadjar is ahead of Albon in the Gulf Williams, but they are starting in the top 10. But it is the top 8 to score points for this race for the sprint. As we're going through the grid, Alonso Norris fighting side by side up ahead. You can see by the timetable or the interval between them. As we're going through to take a good look at this McLaren, the Maestro livery for this 4-car pack. And I didn't realize that 3 of the, 2 of the liveries had the chrome. One's all black, and then I realized the Maestro has the blue. And I felt like it would go good with Miami. And that's the same for the Ford Racing Bullets with a dark green, our dark blue primary and the dark green secondary. We'll go back to the whites and figure out the next race that we want to switch back to this livery. Pretty good long-range shot from the 2 cars there as we're on the lap 2. Alonso's leading Norris 7/10 from the back straight. Hadjar still hanging on to P3 ahead of Sainz. 1.3, 1.4 is the gap between Sainz and Hadjar. Jackson holding on to P5. See if he can stay within that 1 second before the timing line for DRS. And he's going to be outside of the range here on this long left-hander. We had to adjust our setup accordingly. And we did as best as we could to not jeopardize our straight line speed. You can see Antonelli, Bortoletto side by side here in Sector 2. And that's going to be Albon on the inside for 3 wide momentarily. No, not quite. Into that left-hander. Coming into the horseshoe before the underpass section, or overpass section. So we're doing fighting Gasly. And we're hoping to see if, I believe it's Hulkenberg and Carlos Sainz can go another race and hopefully not retire this time around, as we're coming back to the front of the grid. Alonso, Norris, Hadjar, the times have been increased. Norris is still about 9/10 or so behind Alonso, so he's still technically within DRS. Jackson's still holding on to P5 as we're going to be moving on. It's going to be lap 3, sector 2, where Antonelli is going to be making a move on Jackson. Here we are on board. He's going to be making a move on the left side. A little bit of a tire scrub there as Antonelli's trying to squeeze through the wall. We're trying to be very aggressive with Jackson, trying to stay within the points. As we can see, Bortoletto fighting George Russell for that last spot on the sprint for that 1 point. It's going to be Albon behind Antonelli as we see them go through the underpass section, or the overpass section. I'm not really sure what it's called. I need to look up the track layout. As we see Antonelli make a move for Jackson. I forgot to look up the track layout. As we go through the end of turn... What turn is that? Turn 17, turn 18, and 19 to lap 4. Moving on to lap 5. On board with George Russell. He's going to be trying to make a move on Albon and Jackson. Antonelli's ahead of Jackson there up in P5. And we're going to see what we can do here. We're in a position where we couldn't really help Russell get ahead of Albon. But we're still holding on to that position there in P6 now. Albon's fighting to get ahead as between lap 3 and lap 5, Hadjar is now in the lead by about 4/10 ahead of Alonso as we're coming through turn 16 to the max straight. Russell having the momentum to make a move on Albon. He's going to have that easy move on the inside before turn 17. Little bit of a decisive move there with the car movement, but that's not much we can do about it because of the AI. So we see Jackson at P6, Russell P7. On to lap 6 coming through turn 2 and turn 3. And we make a mistake there through turn 3 with our traction, and we basically have to give way for Russell here momentarily. It's going to be a 4-car battle right now. Jackson, Russell, Albon, Leclerc. Bortoletto's somewhat behind him as well. So it's 5 cars, 6 cars, 7 car, all the way down to Behrman for this middle of the pack train. And there's not much we can do about it. Russell's going to be able to push. No, that's going to be Russell ahead of Jackson, my fault. As kind of backwards. He made a move earlier, I believe, there through turn 3. Russell not able to do much as Jackson takes P6 yet again. Leclerc, Bortoletto just outside of the points with Albon holding on that last spot. Trying to get the power down on turn 16. Lap 7 now. We're on board with Jackson yet again, who's 3.3 seconds behind Antonelli in P5. And that's going to be where we have to make way for Russell yet again. We made the mistake through turn 1 and 2. He's going to be able to capitalize on turn 3. As we are left to defend against Albon. He's there on the left side of the screen as he's trying to fight for a position against us. A little bit of a challenge coming through turns 4, 5, and 6. Coming through 7 now and 8 to the middle section of the track. Looking to defend against Leclerc now because Albon lost that position. And we were within the 1 second of Russell. So I believe we have DRS. Yes, we do. It's going to be a fight down to turn 11 against Leclerc. We have the inside. We were able to cover him off. The back end steps out a little bit. So we try to close in on Russell. And over time, here in Miami, we had to adjust the setup a little bit. Went a little bit more aggressive on the wings for this back straight in the middle section. Within the 1 second of Russell, we were holding onto that position. Now we're moving on to the final lap where we're actually on board with the Gulf Williams of Hadjar. Hadjar with the sprint win here on the final lap. And I believe that's going to be Alonso P2. We'll see here in a moment. It's going to be the Gulf Williams of Isaac Hadjar. Gulf Williams doing really good. That's going to be the Aston Martin of Alonso. And then who is in P3, we'll see here in 1 second. Alonso, and then I believe that is Lando Norris.
Well, that's it for the sprint race. There is so much action still to come this weekend, qualifying, and of course, the main event, the Grand Prix.
All right, a very intense sprint race here in Miami with the new tire compounds. Aiden Jackson really fighting off Ferrari, both Ferraris at one point, and Albon for majority of the race as we look at the results for the sprint race. Let's see here. Isaac Hadjar, the other Gulf Williams, hitting it on top. Fernando Alonso, Lando Norris for top 3. Kimi Antonelli, Carlos Sainz, George Russell coming up from... what position did he come up from? P9. Jackson losing 2 positions. And then Charles Leclerc, P12 to P8. And then Albon dropped down from P8 to P9. And then... And no, that's it, actually. The top 8 get points for the sprint race. As we look into the standings for early standings for driver standings, still 1 point difference between George Russell and Aiden Jackson with that. Albon ahead by 5 points against Lando Norris as he did retire, I believe. Let's go ahead and down here take a look at the sprint. We had 2 retirements simultaneously pretty much of Oliver Behrman. No, we had a yellow flag from somebody. I don't quite remember. I know we had a yellow flag behind us in the middle of the battle. We went over it, obviously, by the time of this video's out, because we have post-production. As Oliver Behrman out as well. So we have that situation there as well. I think it was a puncture for the other driver. I'm not quite sure, but like I said, we went over it. Driver standings, Albon leading Norris. Kimi Antonelli, P3. Fernando Alonso sitting P4 at 30 points. 1 point apart between him and Kimi Antonelli. George Russell, Jackson fighting for positions right there. Hadjar, P7. Leclerc, P8. Pierre Gasly, P9 in the McLaren. And Lance Stroll, P10 for the Aston Martins. Gulf Williams still leading by 1 point against Konnersport. And then the gap increases to 16 behind Red Bull, behind by 16 points to Konnersport. Aston Martin 4 points away from Red Bull, and then Mercedes is there in the fight. So it's going to be evolving into a fight between Gulf Williams and Konnersport, and then again between Red Bull, Aston Martin, and Mercedes as this continues on, because McLaren and Ferrari are still fighting for P6, P7, with 4 teams yet to score. 54 points between P8 and P1. Still a lot of points to be collected for this race weekend, because we just got done with the sprint. Let's go ahead and jump right on to the feature race.
F1 seems to be growing by the day in the USA, and today's race is a testament to that. It's time for the Miami Grand Prix. The Miami International Autodrome is a 3.36-mile circuit that circumnavigates the Hard Rock Stadium. The track was designed with 19 corners and long straightaways to encourage close racing while meeting the highest safety standards. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Callie Mayer completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Russell, Hadjar, Carlos Sainz and Stroll, Norris, Albon, Alonso and Pierre Gasly, Bortoleto, Jackson, Ollie Behrman and Antonelli, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Jack Doohan and Zane Maloney, Pepe Marti, Lawson, Aaron and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me is Anthony Davidson. Okay, the start, so important. Tell us about how you ace a launch off the line.
The drivers these days, they practice, practice and practice. They have rigs with them at the circuit where they can sit down with the actual steering wheel from the real car, and they've got lights that they react to. The clutch paddle is tailored around the driver's hands, around their fingers, so they can have optimum position before they start. So there's so much thought and effort that goes into getting these cars off the line.
Here we go then. The formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. So as all the cars reform the grid, the drivers will be hoping to get a strong start. They'll want to earn some valuable points from today's race, with final communications being done with their race engineers, ensuring their planned strategies are all in place.
All right, here we are for the feature race in Miami. Surprisingly, Callie and Mayer, our previous year's teammates, on the front row. So we see the rest of the cars lining up to the grid. One of our Konnersport cars of Jackson starting P12, not doing so good in qualifying. Leclerc and Mayer on the front row. 5 red lights are off. Russell, P3, starting in a decent position. He's going to be having the outside lane alongside Callie Mayer to be able to put a fight up through these first few turns. Carlos Sainz sitting P4, Hadjar P5 off of that sprint win. Jackson at the P10 from P12 against Alonso and Antonelli. We see Albon and Gasly are side by side just ahead of Jackson. We're gonna see what we can do about capitalizing on that position. As they go through sector 2, we're gonna have the toe, we're gonna have the momentum. We tweaked our setup a little bit more to help with straight line speed. May jeopardize us in the long run for the turns, but it's a lot of position changes as everybody's going through too wide here. So we see Albon and Gasly still going at it through lap 1. The majority of sector 2 has been them side by side, but everybody goes single file here through the underpass section. As we go through the remainder of the grid, backfield, the back end team's still not doing great. We need to get them in the points, or see when they'll get in the points this season, if at all. That is Carlos Sainz on the inside of George Russell. And like I said during the sprint, that blue and orange looks really good on that McLaren for Miami. Russell holding on to P3. Leclerc leading Mayer 1.4, 1.5 seconds just about, as that gap is starting to increase between the top 3. Jackson still holding on to P10 as we are on to lap 2. Little bit of a back end coming out there, if you guys noticed. The same with the 2 Hasses going through. Pepe Marti side by side with Ocon. Now that's going to be the... Wow, the Haas and the Audi look very similar in this lighting. So, Pepe Marti and S1 Ocon side by side as Jack Doohan holds on to the last spot of the grid. Leclerc 1.6 now, 1.7. The straight line speed on these tires. I believe they're running soft tires. I could be wrong. This Carlos Sainz making the position on George Russell. The train is starting to build between Russell all the way down to Bortoleto. or Antonelli from P3 to P12. So we're back on board with Jackson, looking to make momentum on Albon, who's sitting P9. Alonso starting to fall back a little bit on Jackson. And we're on board to see a battle between Albon and Gasly still, as we look to see what we can do. We are on the faster tires. We try to get up into the gearbox of Gasly, but nothing we could really do here as we look to try to make another opportunity later on this lap. Lap 3 already. Russell's 2 seconds behind Callie Mayer. And here's our move on Gasly. We stick to the inside with Norris, and we capitalize on that as best as we could. Not quite there. Alonso passing Gasly as well, I just noticed. Then Antonelli is close behind for Sector 2. First itching of GRS that we get. It's going to be on Albon, but we're looking to defend against Alonso this time around. He's going to have the outside lane. He's already up the RPMs. He's going to have that position, but we're going to brake late like we always do. On the inside of that curb, hold on to that position for P9. Get as close as we can to Albon. We are within the 1 second. Russell still at 2.1 behind Callie Mayer, leading Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. Aaron Lawson still not doing great in the backfield. As we see Bortoletto looking to try to make some ground from where he started. Alonso, easy move with DRS. As we switch back, cover on the inside. We have the faster set of tires, so a little bit more traction. As you guys can hear, a little bit of contact. We do not get a warning to making contact with Alonso. It's just a racing incident here as we move on. Lap 6 on board with Jack Doohan as he's trying to catch up with Paul Aaron, one of the Alpines. You see he's a little off to that slowdown. You see the jerk the wheels. He hit his braking point. Like he's going to be spinning through turn 2. It's going to be contact with the wall, a broken front wing. It's going to be yellow flag in Sector 1. Not enough for a safety car. And that's Doohan's race pretty much over unless there's a safety car or a red flag. We haven't had a safety car for a while. I don't quite remember when. But yellow flags in Sector 1. It's not going to affect everybody else up to the front. Leclerc leading Mayer, 6.9 seconds already is the gap. Hadjar sitting P3, 2 seconds behind Mayer. Stroll P4 in the Aston Martin. That is a shock. Stroll usually just screws up his own race. Russell trying to close in on Stroll. Albon's taking the toe right behind him. And we're looking to see who's going to be coming in first off of the soft tires. And it's going to be Callie Mayer from P2. So she's going to be coming in off a set of soft tires, which 6 full laps on soft tires is pretty much all you can get on these tires for this track. She's going to be going on to a new set of hard tires. Looks like Carlos Sainz is going to be coming in as well. You can see him dropping through the order. We have Maloney coming in behind as well in one of the Hasses. See where his pit stop is going to be. Pretty decent stop for him. That's going to be Jack Doohan. No, that's going to be Hulkenberg for his pit stop. No retirement yet for Hulkenberg or Sainz. So they might be in the clear, but we never know. Here's Doohan with a damaged front wing coming in for his pit stop. And he's going to be switching that front wing out. So it's going to be a longer pit stop for him. He's just hoping for an incident to happen to get back into a fighting position. So we see Jackson making a move on Alonso up in P7. Leclerc already on the back straight coming up to turn 17. 10.3 seconds is the gap now between Leclerc and Hadjar with Mayer's early pit stop. She's back in P14. Hadjar's second, Stroll P3, Russell P4. Russell's on the hard tires. Jackson's on the medium, so Jackson's probably going to be coming in first before Russell. See Norris chasing down Albon. Both Gulf Williams in a decent position here, right as of right now. As we see Antonelli coming into the pits next for Mercedes on the soft tires. So both Mercedes cars on a similar race strategy. See who else is going to be coming in. That's going to be Esteban Ocon coming in from P15. Anybody else going to be coming in? That's going to be Pepe Marty in the other Audi coming in as well. It's going to be a slow stop for Ocon. I believe it was. Lawson coming in for his pit stop. Off of a set of soft tires. That's going to be doing on the back straight. Leclerc coming through sector 2 to sector 3 as we're going through the order. Russell still trying to chase down Lance Stroll. Top 3 still have yet to pit. Albon holding on to that position against Lando Norris. Jackson defending against Alonso from P7. That back end is starting to come out lap 9. End of lap 9 on these medium tires for Jackson. We're going to be moving on to lap 10 on board with Antonelli. He's going to be making a few positions from some pit stops. So Alonso, Behrman, Bortoletto, Colapinto, a handful of those guys are going to be coming through the pits for their pit stops. And that's going to be retirement for Antonelli. Smoke is coming through sector 1. That's going to be another yellow flag. Not enough for a safety car or a virtual safety car. He's going to be pulling off here. I believe that's going to be turn 5 runoff. As yellow flags in sector 1 means nobody's going to be able to change positions. As we look through the rest of the grid, Leclerc leading coming out of turn 16 against Norris. Jackson up to P3, who is yet to pit. Leading Gasly, who's 1.5 behind. Mayer P5, Hadjar P6. Stroll down at P7 from their pit stop. That's George Russell, who's back in P10. So we look and see as we're going to be coming in from our pit, coming in for our pit stop on this lap. See where we're going to end up coming out, as Mayer and Gasly are going to be staying out. They're going to be battling for position. And almost halfway through this race, we only have 1 retirement so far. So we're looking pretty good for this sprint race weekend. I don't believe we have a retirements in the sprint race. No issues for Jackson coming through the pits onto a new set of hard tires, which means we're going to be running soft tires at the end of this race to see if we can make up some positions. We're going to be coming out ahead of Oliver Behrman for P11. He's going to have the momentum. Hopefully we can still defend against him through the middle sector. Trying to get the temperature in these tires. Trying not to go over these curves too much. But lap 16, Jackson's up to P10 yet again from pit stops. Leading Behrman still, Bortoletto P12, so he's gained a few positions. As Leclerc is leading Hadjar, Callie Mayer P3, Albon P4.
It's been an action-packed weekend so far, with teams streaming into the pits once again. Antonelli's race ended early due to an engine failure, and we'll be catching up with Toto shortly. Martin, what are your thoughts on what this weekend means for the early championship battle?
There's still plenty to fight for this early in the season. Even though it's only the 3rd race out of 16 on the shortened calendar, most teams still have a shot at climbing the standings for a strong start. There won't be much help for the rest of the season, with only this race weekend and Brazil hosting sprints, so those sprint races become even more crucial.
This weekend, being one of only 2 sprint race events on the season calendar, is sure to add an intriguing twist later in the year. It's also a good opportunity to address a topic not yet discussed: Williams' current position in the standings and the journey that brought them there, with Ted Kravitz reporting from the Williams pit box alongside James Vowles.
That's right, Crofty. Gulf Williams had a tremendous surge towards the end of last season, thanks to key upgrades and developments that set them up for their current position. James, could you share some insight into how you approached developing the car with this season's regulations in mind?
The team put in significant overtime preparing the car for this season, fully aware of the substantial impact the regulations would have. We identified in advance the key areas of the car to focus on and successfully projected the improvements, which closely matched the results from our simulations.
It did seem like Hadja had a tough start for the first 2 races. Was there anything that needed to be done to get him fighting in the top 10 alongside Albon?
Minor electrical issues were resolved with upgrades ahead of the race weekend, but performance ultimately hinges on the driver's track preferences. Pre-qualifying discussions and Hadjar's practice times suggest he excels at circuits like Miami.
A big thank you to James for joining the broadcast, spotting the Toyota Haas pit box in a bit of disarray, which reminds me I should probably head over to the Mercedes pit box before the pit lane gets too busy.
Given their performance so far, it's surprising that Haas hasn't managed to secure a points finish this season. An early retirement could pave the way for much-needed development to get the car into a competitive position.
With 2 drivers out in under half of the race length, that makes 4 drivers to retire on the season. And the stewards seem to have deemed Ocon's parking spot in favour to continue the race. Yellow flags in Sector 2 as the race goes on. Thinking about it, the last time we saw a safety car was at the Mexico race last season, which means this weekend marks 6 consecutive F1 races without one. With the recent regulation changes, it's surprising there haven't been more.
Sorry to butt in, Crofty, but I wanted to mention that as I was passing by some of the other team garages, I happened to run into James Hinchcliffe before reaching the Mercedes pit box. We managed to get him a headset and mic, so say hello to James.
Well, it isn't the normal introduction I'm used to, but I'm glad you caught me. I was actually just finishing up the post-race interview with Antonelli, so it does make sense that you brought me to the Mercedes pit box.
You read my mind, James, and I'm sure by now Toto has been added to the broadcast. What was the situation with Antonelli's retirement? And was there any concern given that Antonelli's season so far had been producing such great results?
Well, I was actually going to say Toto can answer this one because that was one of my questions to Kimi about the reasons behind his retirement earlier in the race.
We were able to look at the data and dial it down to a heating issue with the car. There were no major issues that were presented, and we wanted to be safe and elected to retire the car in the end.
Are there any concerns that could force Mayer to retire the car before the end of the race? She has been working to get used to the car this season, as she is your new driver.
I mean, we've been trying to work her up to speed with what Antonelli has been able to make ground on. The team has confidence in her that she will be able to retain that information and skill set in order to help bring the team back to the top for another championship.
Toto, I did want to ask before we let you go. What was your team's standpoint when the driver transfer happened between Konnersport and Mercedes?
As previously stated, it is ultimately the driver's decision, and the team has been working tirelessly since learning that our lineup would no longer include Russell. The upside of things is that the driver could always choose to return if they feel the timing is right, and I have absolutely no issue with that, and would welcome any of our previous drivers back with open arms.
We do thank you a lot for the input, Toto, as we continue on. And I did want to point out, Alpine, Ford Racing Bulls and Audi have also brought in some minor upgrades for the weekend. While we look at the performances from this season's rookies, we have Will Buxton dropping in the commentary box.
It's good to be back. Reviewing the stats from the last 2 races, the rookies appear to be in a strong position. Each of their teams is similar in R&D on paper, creating an even playing field as they all compete to score points.
Quite snappy you are on the research on your first race back. What is your standpoint on who gets points first amongst the rookies?
From a team standpoint, among those with rookies, my pick would be Alpine's Colapinto. They have plenty of time in the sims and research to leverage, and on paper they're just edging out Haas as well. Still, any of the rookies could score points if they extract maximum performance from their cars, and we've seen Alpine pull it off in previous years.
I agree with you on that one. We've seen plenty of one-offs from teams in the last few seasons, creating exciting wildcards as they find ways to get their drivers into the points. That still leaves 4 teams on the grid yet to score any points as we return to the on-track action.
All right, here we are now, lap 22 as we're on board with Jackson leading Callie Mayer. Russell close behind in P8, side by side, fighting Stroll. Sainz and Gasly sitting P10, P11, so they're both trying for points. As Jackson is fighting Callie Mayer. Previous season teammates going at it side by side yet again. I believe we did in Bahrain as well. No, he did it in Australia, but Mayer's gonna have the position on Jackson. He's leading George Russell. He's still gonna be within DRS. On that back end, he steps out a little bit as we're still waiting to go into the pits for our soft tires. So we're at a disadvantage here as Russell makes a move up to P7. Gasly makes a move on Sainz as well for that last stop of the points. And I was surprised Esteban Ocon retired as well, which means at this rate, there's only 4 people, like they said in the commentary, there's only 4 people who've retired. It's Ocon, Antonelli, Sainz, and Hulkenberg. And hopefully we won't have any more before the end of this race as we're coming through for our final pit stop on the soft tires. So we're going to be really pushing it to get back into the points. We're already P11. Behrman's a ways back. Bortoletto's not too far back behind him. And then Colapinto about 11 seconds back behind that. So we might come out ahead of the Audis. No issue. No, there is going to be an issue on the left front for our soft tire. Putting the tire on. I think it was getting the tire off. But we're going to be coming out ahead of Colapinto for P13. And we have basically 6 laps to push these soft tires back. Have these soft tires push us back into the points. We're going to be on board with Alexander Albon on lap 24 after our pit stop. He's going to be coming down sector 2 on a set of medium tires. He's probably going to be running these till the end of the race. He's trying to close in on his teammate of Hadjar. He's going to be making a spin through turn 11. And it's this situation right here where he's stalling right next to the road, right next to the track. And that's going to be a safety car. The first safety car of the season, like they said, since Mexico. So we see him come back onto the track. And looking at the positions that we are in now, all of our cars are going to be able to catch up to the safety car. Leclerc leading P1. We're going to see where the safety car is. And it's going to be around the corner maybe. Yep, there it is. Safety car ahead of Leclerc, Norris P2, Hadjar P3. And it was unfortunate that we went into the pits just now on the soft tires. But it's basically, we have to make our move within these last few laps because it's more than likely going to be coming in at the end of lap 27 for 2 laps of racing. Charles Leclerc leading the race, Norris P2, Hadjar P3. Mayer is leading Russell. Carlos Sainz in a decent position, not having retired this race. Stroll and Alonso sitting decent for points for this race. Gasly P9 for McLaren. So McLaren, Aston Martin, Williams, they're all looking for decent points to take in this race. Albon sitting P10. Behrman P11, Bortoletto P12, Jackson back in P13 out of the 20 remaining drivers. Alpine Alpine, Ford Racing Bulls, Audi, and Haas have yet to score any points on the season. And I could have swore that we had commentary through the safety car. I could be wrong, unless that's different for like driver career. But we don't have any commentary this time around, so we have to fill in the blank. As we're coming through lap 27, we're getting pretty close to the end of this lap. As we're looking to see what we can do on soft tires. I believe we're the only ones on soft tires. And with the safety car being automated, we don't lose tire wear or unnecessary tire wear. That's going to be Leclerc, Norris on soft tires. I don't know if Hadjar is as well, as nobody went into the pits on this late safety car. They did not want to sacrifice position. And it looks like that's going to be Jack Doohan sitting second. And with Jack Doohan sitting second behind Leclerc, that means he's going to have a blue flag as we're coming up to the safety car restart. Decent angle from the safety car as we're coming up to turn 17 for the restart here. And that blue flag is going to play a major factor for us, at least, to get back into the points, because people are going to have to, he's going to have to yield to let people pass. We're going to have to make that opportunity. Coming through turn 18 to restart this race. There's Jack Doohan falling through the grid on a blue flag, so he doesn't get a penalty. He's already now ahead of Mayer and Russell. Look for another spot to move out of the way. Leclerc leading Norris. He's off to a decent start because of that blue flag. 1.1 seconds is the gap. Russell looking to make a move on Callie Mayer. Trying to see where Jack Doohan is. No, he's already back behind Albon, ahead of Behrman. And we're coming to the opportunity where we can try to make a move here under that blue flag. You see, they're all piled up here. That's going to be Bortoletto on the outside. We're going to make a move, hopefully almost 4 wide through Sector 2. And we make the capitalization on Colapinto, Behrman Bortoletto, because Jack Doohan's lap down. A very risky situation, as you guys noticed. Maybe the thumbnail was that opportunity. We're sitting P11 now, and we have to chase down Alexander Albon, who's been on the podium pretty much the last two races. So it's a very unfortunate turnaround for him to not be on the podium. We'll be on the final lap here. It's going to be our final opportunity to make a move. As we're coming up to turn 11, we're going to be making a late dive bomb on the inside. We don't have the apex, but he does give us room as he's caught up behind the Gulf Williams and the, not Mercedes, the Aston Martin. We're going to make it a move through turn 13 and 14. And that's going to be us in a P10 into the points behind the Aston Martin of, I believe, Lance Stroll. I could be wrong, but we'll see here at the end of the race. But this is going to be Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari to win in Miami. Coming through turn 17. So we see who else is going to be coming through. We cut right before. So Charles Leclerc, P1. It's going to be an Aston Martin. No, it's going to be the Gulf Williams of Hadjar yet again on the podium. And I believe Lando Norris for P3.
What a drive! What a driver! Charles Leclerc takes the victory.
And you could see that they're just at one with the car. Maybe really well adapted to the new regulations. They've clearly done their homework back at base, so fantastic stuff. And you get the feeling they're going to be hard to stop this season.
Now it is time to start the celebrations as we welcome our top 3. And there can only be one on the top step. Today, his name is Charles Leclerc. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time? Be sure to join us again as we continue to bring you the latest excitement in Formula One.
All right, there we have it. The feature race finish. Aiden Jackson P9, George Russell P5, P12 for P9, or P12 to P9 for Aiden Jackson, P3 to P5 for George Russell. So they both were opposites in this race. As Charles Leclerc, Isaac Hadjar, and Lando Norris. Hadjar keeping Gulf Williams on the podium. Lando Norris keeping Red Bull on the way. on the podium, and then Charles Leclerc on the podium. I don't believe he had one yet. But that is our result for the sprint race. I don't know what happened during the safety car, but we went over it. Jack Doohan was second in the safety car restart, so he had a blue flag for pretty much the entire grid on the last few laps, and we were able to pull it off as Aiden Jackson to get past Albon and Pierre Gasly into the points from our position, which actually paid off really well, even though the safety car came out right after our pit stop to soft tires. But that is completely fine. Let's go ahead and take a look at the full standings from the end of this race weekend. Lando Norris is leading by 10 points against Alexander Albon, as Isaac Hadjar pushes himself up into P6 against Andrea Kimi Antonelli. For the driver standings, Aiden Jackson P8, George Russell P3, with a 2, 3, 4, 5-way battle between P3 and P7, but they're still right there with Alexander Albon. So top 8 are still pretty much in the fight for pretty much the driver standings, as nobody has really pulled away other than Lando Norris and Alexander Albon. But that is to be concluded later on in this season as we get to the mid-season. But Gulf Williams still inching away on their lead, 72 points to Konnersport 65, Red Bull behind at 53, Mercedes at 45, Aston Martin still right there with them at 44, Ferrari now up to 37, McLaren up to 23, and still the bottom 4 teams have yet to score any points. Now 72 points between the bottom 4 and Gulf Williams. As we wrap it up here in Miami, and I believe the next race is in Imola, so I hope you guys enjoyed this race weekend with the sprint and feature race in Miami, and we'll see you guys in the next one.